Please help me, please. My son's not here. My poor Corinne's not here. Help me.
He's unconscious. Why is he unconscious?
Listen, I don't know.
Don't take my children away. I haven't done anything wrong.
Okay.
He's on the floor, and rather than grabbing his body, she's picked him up by his t-shirt. It's ripped.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of the murder of Logan.
What?
A mother's number one job is to protect her baby at all costs. Sometimes that means keeping the baby safe from the cold by dressing them in a coat, or from sickness by keeping the baby inside when needed. Sometimes that means keeping the baby safe from someone who wants to harm them, whether it be a stranger on the streets or someone you let into your home. But far too often, we see women letting these violent men into their homes and just stand by as they abuse their child. And in this case, not only does this mother allow and even cover it up when a grown adult beats up on her baby, but she allows a martial arts trained teenager abuse her son as well. All the while, she covers their tracks and pretends that nothing is wrong. It's sickening, and it will never make sense. But before we get into the case, I want to talk about one way we can stay on top of our health, and that is with Z-Biotics. Today's modern life makes it difficult to keep up with a perfectly balanced diet. I'm always eating too much of one thing or not enough of another, and that is why I started using Z-Biotics Sugar to Fiber Probiotic Mix every day. The PhD microbiologists at Z-Biotics understand that extra sugar is pretty much impossible to avoid these days, and we know that 95% of Americans don't get enough fiber. So they genetically engineered a probiotic to convert some of that extra sugar from our everyday diet into a prebiotic called Levan. This leads to a more balanced microbiome, which is key to a healthy gut. One stick of their Sugar to Fiber will get you your daily dose of fiber from foods you already eat. What's good about their product specifically is that it delivers the fiber slowly throughout the day, which is actually how your microbiome prefers it. I started drinking the Sugar to Fiber sticks every day because I'm well aware that I don't get enough fiber throughout my day. It fits perfectly into my morning routine. I just put it into my morning water and go through the rest of my day knowing that I'm supporting my gut health with my morning routine. Sugar to Fiber is the newest product from Z-Biotics. They also have a pre-alcohol probiotic, which I've used many times over the years before they ever agreed to a partnership with me. It definitely helps you get through those rough mornings after drinking. So make sure you head to zbiotics.com/RachelShannon and use code RachelShannon at checkout for 15% off any first-time orders of Z-Biotics probiotics. Z-Biotics has a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you aren't satisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Thank you again so much to Z-Biotics for partnering with me on today's video. With that being said, let's get into today's case. Logan Mwangi was born March 15, 2016 in Bridgend, Wales to Angharad Williamson and Ben Mwangi. Throughout his short life, Logan was described as the sweetest little boy with the cutest curly hair and the biggest smile. He was always a good listener, never getting into trouble, and always following the rules. He was always so cheerful, talkative, polite, and caring. At school, he loved being outside and playing with his friends. He was intelligent and very inquisitive. He took in information like a sponge, always wanting to know more and more. When he put his mind to something or had a subject he was interested in, he could become totally immersed in learning. Now, I believe both Angharad and Ben were living in or near Essex when they first started their relationship, but after becoming pregnant, Angharad moved back to Wales to live with her mother. Around the time of Logan's birth, Ben moved to Bridgend to help co-parent. But soon after Logan was born, Angharad and Ben broke up. After the split, Ben ended up moving back to Essex, 215 miles away from Logan and Angharad. There was a short time in which Logan and Angharad actually moved to Brentwood, but after only about 2 months, they moved back to Wales to be close to family. After moving back to Wales, by late 2016, early 2017, Logan's mother started a relationship with a new man, Jordan. It was around this time when Angharad began preventing Ben from contacting his son. She stopped allowing him to visit, and eventually she blocked his number altogether. For the years that followed, Ben claims that he tried to see Logan and tried to fight for his rights as a dad. All he wanted was to be a father to his son. But Angharad made that impossible. At some point during this time, Angharad and Jordan ended their relationship after he allegedly attacked her. It was said that this relationship overall was a violent, toxic one, so it's a good thing it ended. Now, even though Angharad was preventing Logan from having a relationship with his father all that time, those around her described her as being a relatively good mother. She clearly cared so much about Logan, but she could be overprotective at times to the point of not allowing Logan to really experience many things that other kids got to do. However, Logan did get to spend a lot of time with his maternal grandmother, Claire. Logan absolutely adored his grandmother, and she loved him just as much. He would always go to her house for sleepovers where they would play games, and she would always have something new to teach him. This was such a positive time in Logan's short life. Then, after 3 years of having absolutely no contact with his son, by 2019, Angharad finally started letting Ben have some contact with him. This isn't stated as fact, but my assumption is that she started letting Ben back into her life after breaking up with Jordan. Either way, by April of that year, she took Logan to visit Ben and his family in Essex. It was described that Ben and his mother had such a great time with Logan and were trying to soak in every minute they got to spend with him. It seemed like finally Ben was going to have a relationship with his son. But that dream was very short-lived. That same year, in 2019, 28-year-old Angharad met and started a relationship with 37-year-old John Cole. The two met at a Railway Inn pub, and what started as a one-night stand turned into a relationship that Angharad initially described as perfect. She said that she always wanted this little fairy tale life with her knight in shining armor, and that seemed to be what she was in for with John. Now, John Cole did have a bit of a criminal history. Between the years of 2002 and 2004, he had been convicted of assault and/or battery on 3 different occasions. In 2005, he was convicted of arresting or obstructing a constable. The following year, he was convicted of possession of cannabis. In 2007, he was convicted of intimidating a witness, battery, blackmail, and preventing the course of justice. That same year, he was convicted of theft, burglary, criminal damage, more weed charges, and resisting an officer. But after that, it seemed like John sort of cleaned up his act. I believe it was around 2007 when he started a new relationship with a woman named Rebecca. He was with her for the 10 years that followed, helping to raise her son, Craig Mulligan, throughout that time. Despite the fact that John was not Craig's biological father, Craig called John dad and very much looked up to him as his father figure. Craig's biological father was not involved in his life and had actually died in a car crash when he was around 5 years old, so John was really the only positive male figure he had in his life. However, this relationship with Craig's mom did ultimately end, and shortly after, he started his relationship with Angharad. After meeting Angharad and moving in with her, Craig maintained his relationship with John. He would often be over at the home to visit John, Angharad, and little Logan. Now, on the outside, it seemed like John and Angharad had a happy, healthy relationship with each other and as parents. John treated Logan like his own, and together they made a perfect family unit. However, shortly after their relationship started, problems started to arise. As you can imagine, after starting this new relationship with John, Angharad went back to her old ways of preventing Ben from ever seeing his son. Not only that, but Claire, Logan's grandmother, who he absolutely loved and saw all the time, she also started seeing less and less of Logan until Angharad completely stopped bringing Logan over. Then, other friends around the couple noticed just how strict John had gotten with Logan. In one instance, one friend, Jody, witnessed a physical punishment inflicted on Logan. John had been sitting in the doorway, watching 3-year-old Logan as he held a push-up position. Logan was visibly tired, shaking and crying until his arms gave out and he collapsed. John told him to get back into the position, which he did. After witnessing this, Jody brought it up with John, telling him that she didn't think this was an appropriate punishment for a 3-year-old, but he just shrugged her off. Then, when she brought it up with Angharad, all she said was that Logan needed to learn his lesson because he was acting up. There was another incident where Jody was with the family and they all ordered KFC, but Logan wasn't allowed to eat the takeout food. John and Angharad said that he was being bad, so he didn't deserve fast food. He got to sit with the family, but he was only given cereal to eat. Meanwhile, John was just talking about how delicious the fast food was, rubbing it in Logan's face as he was left out. When John would leave the room, Jody would slip Logan some of her chicken, but still, she felt so bad for little Logan being left out. Around this time, as Jody was witnessing this treatment of Logan, she noticed a shift in Logan's personality. The once outgoing, bubbly young boy was now acting more introverted, withdrawn, and quiet. He visibly lost weight, and his complexion was looking pale. It seemed like all this punishment Logan was receiving was really taking a toll on his mental health and his personality. He didn't know how to act. He didn't know what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. It seemed like he was constantly being punished just for being himself. Then, by August of 2020, things grew even more concerning. That month, Angharad took Logan to the hospital with reports of what she thought was a dislocated arm. She said that Logan fell down the stairs and started crying, so she thought he dislocated his arm. So she grabbed it with a firm grip and did this forceful twisting motion to try and pop it back in. She heard a click, and Logan stopped crying, so she thought she successfully popped it back in. But after he went to bed that night and she saw him the following morning, she noticed that his arm didn't look right, so that is why she brought him in. Turns out, upon further testing, they found that he had fractured his humerus, or your upper arm bone. After the fracture was discovered, hospital staff made a safeguarding referral to police. They apparently investigated the incident, but I don't think any further action was taken because they pretty much just believed the story they were given. However, by January of 2021, Angharad called the police to report that John's then 13-year-old son, Craig, admitted that he actually pushed Logan down the stairs, and that is how he actually sustained his arm injury. She also said that John was the one who tried putting his arm back in place after they thought he dislocated it, saying that she lied about this to protect John. At that point, another safeguarding report was made, and social services got involved with the family. By March of 2021, Logan was placed on the Child Protection Register due to concerns about his welfare. During one of those visits with social services in May of that year, Angharad informed the social worker that Logan had suffered a burn, saying it was from a hot water tap in the bathtub. But it would later be revealed that this was actually caused by his mother placing a hot spoon on his neck because he was being annoying, according to John. But at the time, Angharad provided pictures of the burn as well as the tap to the social worker, who determined that the burn was a match for the tap. So this was deemed an accident. No further action was taken at this time. For the months that followed, social services did several unscheduled visits to the home. Each time, they found that the home was clean. Logan looked healthy and clean, and he looked like he had plenty of toys, and it seemed like Angharad cared about him a great deal. The social worker did feel like John could be intimidating, but it seemed like the relationship between him and Angharad improved over time. There were no concerns over their relationship or how either adult treated Logan. By June of 2021, Logan was removed from the Child Protection Register and was instead placed on a Child in Need plan, which is for children deemed not to be at risk, but do have more complex needs than your typical child, which do require some additional services. Now, to go back just a bit. Also in January of 2021, John's stepson Craig had been removed from the care of his mother after reports of her assaulting him. From there, Craig was placed into a foster home. However, his time at these foster homes was short-lived because the families could not deal with his extreme behaviors. He was violent, menacing, and had his foster family fearing for their lives. While with his first family, he was frequently sent home from school due to his behaviors. There were several instances where he bullied other students, punching one peer in the face and tackling another to the ground. When at home, he spent basically all day, every day, playing games like Call of Duty on his Xbox, refusing to even get up to go to the bathroom. Instead, he had an empty Coke bottle that he would pee in. When he wasn't playing games, he was busy terrorizing the other children who lived in the foster home. In one instance, he stomped on his foster sister's feet so severely that she had to go to the hospital and undergo surgery to fix her toes. At one point, he was caught hiding knives around the house and once even used a knife to cut up the family's pool floaties. He tortured the family dog, pulling on his legs and spraying deodorant in his eyes. Then he would frequently talk about violent movies and violence in general. After the Purge movie came out, he told his foster mom that he was going to kill her, her husband, her daughter, and their dog.
Yeah, so today we are gonna just be chilling. I know no one will probably recognize me and no one knows me, but I just wanna get noticed in the Face House because it's always been my dream to be in the Face. As in, look at where they are now. Look where they started, and look where they are now. For God's sake, they started a miniature house. Then they went into that big house. Now they're getting kicked out, but still, have faith in them. Phase up forever. What, baby?
In another occasion, Craig asked his foster mom to buy him a bat under the pretense that he wanted to try baseball at school. But once she bought him that bat, he instead went to the park and started smashing things up. While in their care, it was said that Craig was constantly talking about John and Angharad. He called John dad and Angharad mom. He idolized them, and especially John. But when he would talk about Logan, he simply referred to him as the 5-year-old, and he made his disdain for Logan very well known. At one point, he told his foster sister that he wanted to kill the 5-year-old, referring to Logan. Throughout all of these behaviors, Craig's foster parents would always tell his caseworkers about the concerning comments and everything he was doing, but it seemed like every time the social worker would just brush them off. After being with this first family, he was moved to another foster home. But once again, they had a really tough time with Craig and his behaviors. And just to note, both foster families were very experienced and had fostered all sorts of kids over the years. That first family said that they had been fostering for the better part of 50 years, and they never had turned away a child or felt afraid for their lives. That was until Craig. That is how violent and out of control Craig could be. During this time, by June of 2021, despite all of these concerns being raised by his foster families, Angharad and John were petitioning with the courts to be granted parental rights over Craig and were requesting that he live with them. Apparently, Craig's social worker was in full support of this, saying that Craig loved his stepfather and felt that him being with his stepfather was what was best for him. Over the course of a few weeks, a home assessment was done. We don't know exactly what was said in court to convince a judge, but after just a few weeks, Angharad and John were approved guardianship over Craig, and he was approved to live with them in July. This was despite the fact that Logan had just been removed from the Child Protection Registry weeks prior. This was despite the fact that he had been making threats against Logan while with the foster family, and despite Angharad admitting to police that Craig pushed Logan down the stairs in January of that year, causing him to break his arm. According to Logan's social worker, she tried to get into contact with Craig's social worker to express her concerns over Craig living under the same roof as Logan, but she was ignored. I also want to note that it typically takes around 11 weeks to complete a full, thorough home assessment to determine if a child can live with the family. However, as we can see, Craig was approved to live with John and Angharad after only a few weeks. This was also something that raised questions, and we don't know exactly how or why it happened this way to this day. That being said, Craig arrived to live with the family on July 26, 2021. The week that followed was miserable for Logan, and that's putting it lightly. Logan was last seen alive on July 27th when he was seen during a FaceTime call between John and his friend. He was seen sitting on the stairs, coloring numbers. He was described as being happy and joyful at that time. A few days later, July 30th, Craig's social worker arrived to the home for a visit. However, she was not allowed to come inside because the family told her that Logan had tested positive for COVID, so he was quarantining. The measures the family took to isolate Logan were pretty extreme. He was locked in his room for 10 days. There was a baby gate placed at the door to keep Logan from coming out. He was not allowed to interact with anyone in the family. When his meals were delivered to him, he was told to face the wall as the food was left for him. Then he ate meals by himself. He was expected to entertain himself with his toys and TV in the room, being alone for 24 hours a day for 10 days straight. But because of his diagnosis, the social worker stayed outside and didn't push any further to actually see Logan. Instead, she talked with Craig outside briefly, who told her that he didn't need her and told her to F off. Then she spoke with Angharad and John briefly, who reported no concerns regarding Craig or Logan. 20 minutes after arriving, the social worker left. Then, by 5:46 a.m. on the morning of July 31st, 2021, 999 received a call from Angharad, who sounded absolutely hysterical. She told the dispatcher that she put her son Logan to bed that prior night, but woke up that morning to find that he was gone. In the call, she was screaming over and over and over again, calling out Logan's name, asking repeatedly, "Where is he?" In a panic, she said that the back gate was open and started looking for him in the alley. At one point, she even goes up to a passerby, asking if he's seen her son. At one point in the call, she said that Logan had been in lockdown for the entire week due to COVID. She said that his isolation was lifted that day, so maybe he left on his own. But even so, he cannot be out there all by himself. He didn't have any shoes with him. He didn't have a coat. She was terrified that he was out there all alone, cold and scared. She mentioned Craig's biological mother, saying that she wondered if she took him as revenge for them getting custody of Craig. She ends the call begging for police to get there as soon as possible to help search for her son.
Please help me, please.
Where are you?
My son's not here. My boyfriend is not here.
Okay,
Help
take
me,
a breath.
please.
Take a breath, because I can't understand you when you're crying. Where are you?
5 Lower Lansdowne Freddie the son.
Lower what, sorry?
Lower Lansdowne Freddie the son said somebody is not here.
Okay, who's not there?
My son, he's alive. He's not here.
Okay, take a breath. When did you see him last?
I touched him in the bed last night and I've just got up for my son and the other one's not here. Logan!
Okay, take a breath. He's 5 and he's gone. Can you see any of the doors open?
Logan!
I need you to speak to me, not just shout. I know it's really full on and it's really scary. I need you to tell me. What's his name? Is his name Logan?
Logan Williams, please.
And he's 5. Is he 5, did you say?
He's 5, please.
Okay. Tell me what he looks like, please.
He's a little mixed race boy. He's just got his spidey pajamas on. Wearing shoes. Where?
Okay, is anybody else there with you? Any other adults?
Yeah, my partner. He's
Okay.
looking now.
Right. Are any of the doors or windows open?
What doors, windows, what's open? Someone tell me what.
Take a breath. I know that this is terrifying, but right now I need you to try to breathe so I can get the information I need. Can you see?
My back gate's open. My back gate's open.
Okay, back gate. Where does the back gate lead to?
I don't know what the road's called.
That's fine. It leads onto a road as opposed to a field or anything like that, does it? Okay.
I'm running up it now. It's concrete.
Okay. What's your name?
You're going to look at him now.
What's your name? I need to know your name a second.
Angharad.
Okay, Angharad, I really need you to just take a breath for a second, okay? Because you're starting to hyperventilate. I know that this is very, very scary. I need you to stay in the house. So who's run out after Logan?
My fiance, my partner.
Your partner has. Okay. So Dad's gone out looking, yeah? What's Dad's name?
John Cole.
By the time officers arrived, by around 5:55 a.m., they searched all around the flat and in the surrounding area, all in hopes of finding their missing 5-year-old little boy. As the searches were getting started, police spoke with Angharad, who appeared hysterical and panicked. Inside, they found John, who appeared upset. He was sitting on the floor and rolling up cigarettes. Meanwhile, Craig was in his room playing Xbox casually, yelling at people through his headset, completely unconcerned with what was going on around him. Right down the street from the home in Bridgend, there's a little nature area with a bridge and a river that ran through, the Ogmore River. This was another area that officers went to, and very quickly, their searches came to a tragic end. One of the officers had been searching near some bush when she spotted what looked like a body in the bank of that river. Once she got closer, she saw what looked like a young boy lying on his right side in the fetal position, still submerged in water. The officer picked him up out of the water and brought him to where the officers were, lying him on the ground. On the ground, officers noticed a bruise just above his left eye that ran the entire length of his eyebrow. He was wearing a black Spider-Man pajama top and colorful dinosaur pajama bottoms. Pretty quickly, officers were confident that they found 5-year-old little Logan. His eyes were still open, his skin was pale, his body was stiff, and his lips were blue. They took his temperature, and it was found that he was icy cold. Based on that, they assumed that this little boy could have been in that water for hours. He was transferred to the Princess of Wales Hospital in Bridgend to see if there was any hopes of saving his life. But as I stated before, based on how he was found, first responders knew there was pretty much nothing more they could do. He very clearly already appeared to be deceased when they found him. So by 7:15 a.m. on July 31st, 2021, 5-year-old Logan Mwangi was pronounced dead. At the hospital, Logan was joined by his mother, who continued to act emotional and hysterical, screaming out and sobbing, making all sorts of noises. While the nurses were there, she said things like, "I should have taught him how to swim," and made sure to kiss Logan's forehead while a nurse was watching. After this devastating discovery was made, of course, Logan's body was examined by hospital staff, then sent to the medical examiner for an autopsy. It was found that Logan suffered horrific, catastrophic injuries before his death. There were a total of 56 external injuries on Logan's body. He had several bruises to his abdomen, which were consistent with 3 or 4 hard punches or kicks to his stomach, and at least 1 to his buttocks. He also had multiple bruises on his face and scalp. Internally, Logan suffered severe, extensive organ damage. He had severe hemorrhaging to the right side of his brain. The medical examiner believed that Logan suffered brain damage as a result of multiple episodes of blunt force trauma to the head. He also had an old fractured clavicle, which was in the process of healing, meaning that it occurred a while before his death from a prior episode of abuse. There was a laceration to the lower part of the right lobe of his liver, as well as a tear to his small bowel mesentery. It was found that there were 2 different tears to his duodenum, which is the lower part of your stomach. One of the tears was a rupture to the structure itself, while the lower part had been ripped away from the head of the pancreas. Additionally, there was a significant amount of blood found pooled within his abdominal cavity. These injuries were caused by localized blunt force trauma to the abdomen caused by a punch, kick, or stomp. The severity of organ damage is equivalent to a high-velocity fall of over 10 feet. That is how much force was used to beat this 5-year-old little child. There was no evidence of any water in Logan's lungs or stomach, meaning that he was dead before entering the water. His cause of death was determined to be blunt force abdominal injury, as well as cerebral injury caused by hypoxic ischemic neuronal injury and traumatic brain injury. These injuries are consistent with a forceful assault. It was stated that Logan survived for probably several hours after the assault. He would have been visibly uncomfortable and suffering from intense pain. After several hours, he finally succumbed to his injuries and died. However, had he received prompt medical attention after the attack, there was an 80% chance of survival, according to the ME. After the discovery of Logan's body, of course, Ingrid and John were taken in by police for interviews. Initially, she was completely hysterical, acting like she had no idea what happened to Logan. She said she had no idea how Logan died or went unconscious. She was convinced that he had just run off and died after slipping into the river.
Well, I'm not allowed to see my own biological son.
I heard. Look.
He's unconscious. Why is he unconscious?
Listen, I don't know. Right now, the best thing...
All I'm getting is answers like this. Why is no one telling me what's going on?
I don't know. Sweetheart, look.
He's
please.
my baby. What's going on?
You need to do your job. Yeah?
I do. I'm not saying it's not reasonable.
If he's unconscious, he needs me. He needs warm
the
clothes.
ambulance
He
service
needs
at the minute.
mum.
They've got blankets.
He needs his
blankets, okay.
I feel so useless, Dad.
I know.
It's not my fault.
But then, after being confronted with other evidence that I'll get into in a minute, Angharad changed her story and blamed John. She started to say that John was the one who attacked Logan. She said she feels conned. She feels betrayed by him. She wishes she never met him or Craig, saying they ruined her life. She claimed that on the night of July 29th, Logan was assaulted by John and Craig. She said that John punched Logan so hard he fell on his bottom. John then told Craig that if Logan stood back up, he should sweep Logan's feet out from under him, which Craig did. He then pushed Logan's head onto the ground before John and Craig began punching Logan in the abdomen repeatedly. As they were punching him, Angharad said that she yelled at them to stop, but John wouldn't. This caused a big fight between Angharad and John. After the assault took place, Angharad claimed that she ran out of the house hysterical, trying to leave and get help for her boy. But she was prevented from leaving because she was overpowered by Craig, who forced her back inside. After coming back inside, she felt like Logan seemed okay. She didn't think that he suffered from any serious injuries. She says that she knows she could have done more to call for help, but he seemed okay at the time. It didn't seem necessary to make any more trouble in the situation. After the assault, the family went on as normal for the days that followed. Angharad described that on Friday, July 30th, Logan finally tested negative for COVID, so she let him out of his room while she cleaned up for him. He was feeling a lot better and was running around the house acting like his normal, energetic self. He went to bed that night, and as I stated earlier, by the morning of July 31st, she woke up to Logan being missing. He must have walked off and drowned in the river. On the other hand, in John's interview, he said that on the night of July 30th, he had been sleeping but was woken up by Angharad, who was freaking out. She told John that she found Logan dead from a freak accident. She was hysterical, screaming. John said that he tried CPR but got no pulse. He desperately tried to save Logan but wasn't able to. So I guess he was doing CPR so hard that he caused all of those injuries to his abdomen. As we hear in so many other cases that involve child abuse, the CPR is always what people jump to as being like, oh, that's actually how the bruises got there, not from any sort of assault. However, further investigation refuted both versions of these events. As a part of the investigation, police had interviewed a few neighbors and found some CCTV footage from neighboring homes, which showed the area around Angharad's flat. On that CCTV footage, Angharad was seen leaving the home right around 3 p.m. that day, walking out past the gate and towards the street. Craig was following close behind. It did appear that Angharad was distressed and Craig was yelling to her. According to a neighbor, Craig was begging Angharad not to leave, while Angharad told Craig to stop causing a scene. As that happened, a couple who were driving by stopped Angharad and asked her if she needed help, but she told them to leave her alone before going back into the flat, again, followed closely by Craig. Based on this footage, it does not seem like Angharad was actually trying to get away. At no point did Craig physically overtake her. Not only that, but an outside party offered her help, offered to take her away, but she refused, voluntarily going back inside. Now, it was also found on that CCTV footage that the curtain to Logan's room had been closed at around 8:30 a.m. on Friday, July 30th, and remained closed all day until 5:30 p.m. We don't know exactly what happened that day, but based on this, it's thought that Logan was beaten at some point in the morning on Friday. Then he spent the rest of the day suffering, slowly bleeding out internally, slowly dying from his injuries. He most likely died sometime in the evening on Friday, July 30th. Then, by 2:43 a.m. on July 31st, that CCTV footage captured John Cole and his son, Craig Mulligan, leaving the flat. John was carrying what looked like Logan's body over his shoulder as they walked towards the river. Once they arrived to the river, they dumped his body near a sewage pipe and a railway bridge. After John and Craig left the flat, Angharad could be seen switching the lights in Logan's room on and off multiple times. When Logan was first reported missing, officers found a Paw Patrol pillow, a duvet, and a mattress protector, all in a dryer in the home. It was found that these items contained small patches of Logan's blood. It's thought that while Craig and John were out dumping Logan's body, Angharad was going back and forth between his room and the rest of the flat, cleaning up the evidence from his room. After dumping the body in the river, John and Craig are seen returning to the flat by 2:51 a.m. before leaving again at 3:16. At that time, they're walking back in the direction of the river, but this time they're carrying Logan's ripped dinosaur PJ top, which they dump in the woods. They then return back to the flat by 3:21 a.m. The pajama top was ultimately found in later searches. It was also found that the top had been ripped apart and there had been damage to the neckline of the top. Based on this, it's thought that Logan may have been beaten in that shirt because the shirt that they found in the woods matched the pajama bottoms that he was found in when his body was found. So it's thought that he was beaten in that shirt. The shirt was removed and changed, and then Logan was placed in the river to make it look like he drowned, and then that shirt was hidden elsewhere in hopes that nobody would find it. Now, while John and Craig were out dumping Logan's body, Angharad actually claimed that she had been asleep that night. However, once again, we see the light inside the home being switched on and off. She tried saying that these lights were actually from security lights in the front of the home, but that's not how it looked on the CCTV footage. Not only that, but her phone records indicate that she was watching YouTube videos pretty much all night. This included makeup videos, BMW videos, and Dr. Pimple Popper. She was casually watching YouTube while her boyfriend and stepson were out dumping the body of her 5-year-old son. Based on everything we've discussed up to this point, by August 1st, 2021, John Cole, Angharad Williams, and Craig Mulligan were all arrested and charged with Logan's murder. Both John and Angharad acted completely surprised, with Angharad being her typical hysterical self. She said that she did nothing wrong, started hyperventilating, and asking what happened to Logan. She acted like she didn't know what happened to him, saying that she just lost her son, and now they're taking away her other children and arresting her.
Okay, so this is John, okay? Alright, John. Right, you've obviously come to speak to you. What I need to tell you now, okay? 1822. I'm arresting you on suspicion of the murder of Logan.
What?
I do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence, okay? The necessity for my arrest of you today is for prompt and effective investigation, to protect a vulnerable person, and to prevent the loss and secure of any additional evidence we need, okay? Right.
Fuck no. What?
John, calm down a second. What we're going to do now, okay?
I just found out what's the next bed.
I know.
Okay. Why am I getting arrested?
Right, do you want to have a sit down by there a minute, Claire? Do you want to have a sit down by here a minute, Hannah? And have a sit by here now. Sit down on the...
I haven't done anything wrong!
Do you want to have a sit down by there a minute, right? Don't want you falling down, right? Have a sit down by there, okay?
Listen, what Vicky's going to say.
Okay. Right, you're under arrest on suspicion of murder, okay? So you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something which relates to the court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Necessity for the arrest, okay? Is to prevent loss of property, to allow a prompt and effective investigation, and to protect vulnerable persons and children, okay? We get social services, okay?
Don't take my children
No? Okay, it's just part of the investigation.
But I haven't done anything wrong.
Okay.
Where is Logan? Where is Logan,
He's
please?
still with us at the moment. He's still in the hospital with doctors.
What happened to him?
Can't explain anything further at the moment.
Why is nobody talking to me? You're supposed to be helping find out what happened, not arresting me when I'm telling you my son's...
Okay.
What is wrong with you guys? You're supposed to be helping me.
I understand you're upset. I understand.
Is your son dead? Is your son been found in a river?
Okay, Anne Harrod. We understand you're very upset. We've got an investigation.
I'm very upset. I've just lost my son. You've taken my other children away.
When Craig was arrested, it was said that he was acting very aggressively, swearing at officers and saying, "Get out of my effing way," and trying to fight them off. Once officers brought all 3 individuals into the station, they were all questioned once again about what happened. In his interview, Craig claimed that he had nothing to do with Logan's death. He said that he did help John with throwing the bags away in the river that night, but he thought that it was just trash. He didn't actually know exactly what was in those bags. He had no way of knowing that it could have been Logan's body. He said that he and John were trying to be as quiet as possible because they didn't want to wake up Logan or Herod. However, at one point he said that his mom woke up in the middle of the night and started acting hysterical, saying that Logan was dead and wouldn't let anyone into that room. He finished his interview by saying that Herod is to blame for everything. He said that he had nothing to do with it, and neither did his dad. However, after his initial arrest, those around Craig in the jail saw some of his real personality come out. Now, it was said by Craig's foster parents and past teachers that, again, Craig could act like a complete monster towards others. But when he would get in trouble, he started using this little baby voice and acting totally innocent. That is the kind of voice he was using in those police interviews, acting and sounding like a sweet, innocent 13-year-old little boy. But when he was acting himself, one of his support workers heard him say, "I love kids. I love effing kids. I love to punch kids in the head. It's orgasmic." Then, another inmate at the juvenile facility he was originally at reports that Craig told him, "I did some bad stuff, but I'm not allowed to talk about it." For the months that followed, all 3 defendants sat in jail awaiting their trials. And finally, by February 21st, 2022, less than a year after little Logan's death, the joint trial for the 3 defendants started. The prosecution was arguing that all 3 defendants took part in the murder of this 5-year-old little boy. He couldn't have stood a chance against each of them individually, and certainly not all 3 of them together. It was said that John Cole was a known racist who was always making comments about Logan's skin and just overall had this extreme disdain for him. Whether it was based on a skin tone or for some other reason, we truly don't know. But regardless, John dished out severe, brutal punishments for Logan all throughout the time he was in that home. Physical punishments such as forcing him to do push-ups, violent beatings that included punching Logan. Meanwhile, Craig looked up to him as a father so much. He idolized him. He wanted his father to be proud of him, and when he saw John beating up on Logan, he partook at his father's encouragement. Not only to impress his father, but because Craig also had these anger issues and tendency towards violence all on his own. And it's also thought that when Craig was talking so negatively about Logan to his foster parents, he was probably just repeating things that he heard from John, because he didn't live with them at the time, but he did idolize John. And if John did not like Logan and was racist towards him and was beating up on him, Craig's gonna do the same thing. Again, not only because he is an angry teenager, but also because he just wants to be like his dad and sees what he's doing and wants to repeat it. Then Herod saw what was going on and not only allowed it to happen, but it seemed that she supported John through it. According to that friend, whenever she would bring these punishments to Herod's attention, she basically just said that Logan was being bad and he needed to learn his lesson. Seeing how he was treated in front of friends, it was probably 10 times worse behind closed doors. Then, on Logan's final day, according to Herod, Logan and Craig both beat Logan within inches of his life. Meanwhile, Herod sat and watched and allowed it to happen. Logan probably spent his last day in immense pain and anguish, just waiting for his injuries to take over and end his life. All the while, no one did anything about it. Angharad can say that she thought Logan was fine all she wants, but based on his injuries and what the ME said, Logan would have been in so much pain, there's no way Angharad didn't notice. She just didn't care. Not only did she not care enough to not do anything about it, but I honestly think she thought he deserved it for whatever reason. I think John was just like a cancer that came into the house and spread all this negativity about Logan and got everyone against him, and I think Angharad genuinely felt that Logan was getting everything he deserved. And that's why she didn't do anything to help, because she didn't think that she needed to. Then, after Logan succumbed to his injuries, all 3 individuals took part in the cover-up. John and Craig moved his body to the river, dumping it in the water to make it look like he just wandered off and drowned. Then, while they were disposing of the body, Angharad was getting to work cleaning up Logan's sheets and beddings, trying to get rid of the evidence. Once again, Angharad claimed that she was sleeping that entire time, but her cell phone evidence and that CCTV footage say otherwise. Those who knew Angharad said that she was always known to be overdramatic, theatrical. She was known to get hysterical over almost anything that upset her. We saw that clear as day in that 999 call. What makes it so disturbing is just knowing that the whole thing was an act. How panicked she sounded, pretending to go out and search for him, knowing that his body was in the river. Then, when she was arrested, acting all surprised that she was being blamed and claiming that she had no idea what happened to her son. It's so disgusting to see someone behaving that way, knowing that it's all an act. Knowing that Logan was treated so horribly, beaten so badly that his injuries were equivalent to a high-speed car crash. She knew how badly her son was being treated, yet continued to try and act like nothing was wrong. Everything we discussed up to this point was presented at trial. John's criminal past, his obvious mistreatment of Logan, Craig's concerning past with his foster families and how he had violent tendencies, Angharad's history of being overdramatic and allowing men into her home who clearly were mistreating her son, but are still choosing a man over her precious boy. And of course, the autopsy, the CCTV footage, the cell phone activity. All of that was presented at trial. Of course, the defense for each individual pointed the blame at the next person. John and Craig claimed that Angharad was responsible for her own son's death, and that they were just taking out some trash at 3 a.m. for some reason. Of course, Angharad claimed that John and Craig were the ones who beat Logan to death, and that she was asleep while they disposed of his body. She had no idea that the beating could have been so bad that he died in the middle of the night. Yeah, she could have done more to help him after the beating, but she didn't know that it was that bad, and she certainly didn't know that they were disposing of his body in the middle of the night. The trial ended up lasting about 2 months total. There was so much information, so many witnesses, so much to argue regarding each and every defendant in this case. But finally, after those 2 long months, both sides made their closing arguments and the jury was sent off for deliberations. And on April 21st, 2022, John Cole, Craig Mulligan, and Angharad Williamson were all found guilty of Logan's murder. Craig and Angharad were also found guilty of preventing the course of justice, while John had already pleaded guilty to that charge. When the verdicts were read out, John and Craig remained emotionless, while, as expected, Angharad totally lost it. She started yelling, "No, no, no," and started screaming at John, saying, "You lying mother effer, you lying murderer." In the sentencing phase, John was handed a life sentence with a minimum of 29 years served. Angharad also received life with a minimum of 28 years. Meanwhile, Craig, who was 13 at the time of the murder and 14 at the time of the sentencing, received a sentence of 15 years behind bars before he will be considered for parole.
Logan Mwangi was a happy and loving boy, but small for his age and vulnerable. Weighing only 3 stone, he was helpless as his stepdad John Cole and 13-year-old stepbrother Craig Mulligan beat him mercilessly with his own mother's encouragement. The 3 of them plotted to deceive police after dumping Logan's body in the nearby River Ogmore. Neither Williamson or Cole could explain how Logan was found with injuries likened to those that would be caused by a high-speed car crash. He had 56 external injuries, as well as a fractured shoulder and significant trauma to the brain. Confronted with the mounting evidence against them, they turned on each other.
He was on the floor, and rather than grabbing his body, she's picked him up by his t-shirt. It's ripped.
None of it is true.
Why would John lie?
because John's a liar. Because he doesn't want to get done for murder. I wish I never let this man into my son's life.
For investigators, a picture began to emerge of Cole as a racist bully. He was a former member of the far-right National Front and would refer to Logan by a racist name. The judge said he dehumanised his stepson and regularly made him stand outside in the cold.
Craig, you have done nothing wrong.
I know.
13-year-old Craig Mulligan had only been allowed to move into the house by a family court judge 5 days earlier, despite the fact he'd already threatened to kill Logan, who'd only been taken off the Child Protection Register the previous month. At the station, he was equally a part of the lies and deception. Logan's biological father, Ben Mwangi, was in court today to see the 3 murderers handed life sentences. His ex-partner will serve a minimum of 28 years, Cole a minimum of 29, while Craig Mulligan, Cole's stepson who had come to live in the house, will serve at least 15 years.
So as of right now, that is where the case sits. This was truly such a devastating case to discuss with you all, knowing that an entire family could turn on such a sweet, innocent 5-year-old little boy is just disgusting. I'm so sick of these mothers allowing these men into their lives and then just standing by and watching as these men abuse their children. It's completely unacceptable. Then, of course, social services also deserves some of the blame. They placed Craig into that home when they never should have. Logan was placed on the Child in Danger Registry. Yes, he was taken off, but he never should have been. Then, just days after he was taken off, a larger, older child with a very concerning history was placed in the same home as him, knowing that months earlier, Angharad confessed that Craig pushed Logan down the stairs, causing him to fracture his arm, knowing that Craig threatened to kill his other foster family. Craig needed a lot more help than what he got. He should have been getting intensive therapy, maybe even been sent to a facility to get mental health help because he clearly needed it. But instead, he was placed with an abusive stepfather who he idolized and who encouraged him to take part in the murder of a 5-year-old little boy. Each and every person in this case is responsible for what happened to that baby, but so is social services for allowing it to happen in the first place. All we can do is hope that as we continue bringing these cases to light, as we continue spreading awareness about these innocent lives being taken, that maybe we can see some positive change in how these cases are handled. But with that being said, that is all I have for today's case, and now I want to hear what you all think. Why do you think Angharad allowed this to happen? Do you think she played a larger role in abusing her son, or was it mostly just John while she sat by? Do you think John and Craig are both responsible for his murder? What do you think of Angharad's involvement? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you liked this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!